Hello, my name is Sandra Johnson, and this is my 2019 signature assessment for my Philosophy 1301 class from Cedar Hill Collegiate High School. For this assignment, we studied Sophie's Choice. This video shows the story of Sophie and her two children in a crowd of people, presumably being taken to a Nazi concentration camp. A Nazi officer approaches her and begins brazenly sexually harassing her as she is holding her two children. She begins promising him that she's not a communist and that she is a Catholic woman and should not be taken to the camps. He tells her that he will have mercy on her and allow her to keep only one of her children, but she must decide which one dies. At first, she protests, but as he begins ordering Nazis to take all of them in, she yells for him to take her daughter and leave her son. They do as she says and take the crying daughter away from her while Sophie sobs hysterically. As for Aristotle's perspective, Aristotle founded virtue ethics, the idea that an action's rightness or wrongness is determined by whether or not a virtuous person would make that same decision. Aristotle would argue that, in this situation, the Nazi is in the wrong. After all, a virtuous person would not likely kill a small child while forcing her mother to unwillingly have a hand in her murder. Likewise, a virtuous person would not allow both children to die in order to preserve their own conscience. Sure, the choice was unimaginably difficult for Sophie, and she had to live with it the rest of her life. But if she had not made her choice, both children would have had to die. A virtuous person would not allow both children to die just so that they didn't have to make that choice. My perspective is the same as Aristotle's. The Nazi was in the wrong, and Sophie was not. How can somebody say that the man forcing a woman to choose which one of her children to kill is in any way right? Even if he had never approached Sophie and never made her choose, he still has the blood on his hands from the countless other people he is sending to their deaths. How could Sophie be wrong? If she had refused to choose, not only would the girl have died, but the boy would have died as well. She made the choice with the consequence in mind, and ended up having to make an unimaginable but necessary choice. The trolley problem. With this dilemma, I am reminded of the trolley problem. If the man pulls a lever, a man will die. However, if he doesn't, 5 will die. It's simple to see that it is the morally right decision to kill the one to save the rest. Some may argue that he is still causing someone's death, and he should not choose at all. But in not choosing, he indirectly chooses the 5 deaths. Now we move to Sophie's trolley. If we set up the trolley problem to fit Sophie's situation, it's clear to see who's in the wrong here. On one side of the tracks is her daughter. On the other, both her daughter and her son. And almost unnoticed, tying her children to the tracks and gluing her hands to the lever is the Nazi. The villain is obvious. Although the situation is called Sophie's Choice, I believe it's closer to Sophie's trolley, because there really was no choice, just death or death times 2. It's easy to see the answer when the victims are cartoons on a line, but when the victim is a small, innocent child, lines become blurred. However, when the facts of the matter are emphasized and emotions are subtracted, it is clear to see who is wrong in Sophie's Choice.